In this video, I want to share with you 6 important takeaways of mine after reading over 40 personal finance books in the last 5 years. I've read everything from those OG finance bro books to graduate level finance textbooks, which I had to read to become a certified financial planner, to a bunch of personal finance books who understand the unique challenges that women of color face while trying to level up in life. If you want to build wealth and achieve financial security, these 6 takeaways in this video I think will be game changers in your financial journey. Hello and welcome. My name is Lisa and I am a certified financial planner and I'm an accredited financial counselor. My channel is all about financial education in a way that makes it more inclusive and accessible to everyone, including women of color. Don't forget to subscribe. Why can't I say that word subscribe? Don't forget to subscribe. Now, to set expectations, I'm not going to be here giving you 30 minutes of book reviews. I am going to share my general takeaways from having read all of these books as a credentialed personal finance expert. But of course, I will give you some tips and book recommendations throughout the video. And if you're curious, at the end of the video, I'm going to share the 2 books that actually surprised me the most. Takeaway number 1. There is no such thing as being behind. If you've been on my channel since day 1, you probably already know how much I believe in this. It's basically that we all start our financial journeys from different places. It's all dependent on our backgrounds, our families, our cultures, like what life were we born into. And in a capitalist system like the one we have, we're literally not designed to start on the same footing. So one of the first personal finance books that I read in my own personal finance journey was Broke Millennial by Erin Lowry. When I read this, it was the first time that I thought, oh, it isn't just me. Like, I'm not the only one who feels lost with money, confused by investing, or frustrated that we didn't learn personal finance in school. So this particular book was written in a very relatable and beginner-friendly way. And when I read this, it reassured me that having financial struggles aren't a personal failure. It doesn't mean I'm behind, because like, behind who? Having financial struggles didn't mean that I was doomed. And so that's the takeaway that I want to point out. Now that I've read so many books, I've started to see that there's no timeline. There's literally no age that you're supposed to have a certain amount of money or supposed to have it all together. The world is changing. The age that our parents were able to buy their first home doesn't match what's available to us today for a lot of reasons. So what I want you to know is no one expects you to know everything about money the moment you reach adulthood, or if you're 10, 20, 30 years into adulthood. Because even if you were lucky enough to have personal finance as part of your education in school, I know there are a few schools out there who have financial literacy classes. Even if you were lucky enough to be one of those people, it probably didn't cover all the complexities of all areas of finance. Choosing insurance policies, how to file taxes, how to manage debt if you have $10,000 of debt or $100,000 of debt. You probably didn't learn how to invest for the long term so that you don't have to work. In reality, there are some financial lessons that only make sense when you're already actively earning money, working a job, actively spending money and having to fend for yourself, and actively making financial decisions in real time. So the more that I've entrenched myself into this world of personal finance, I think it's very important to point out that there are tons of beginner-friendly personal finance books, and they meet you where you are. It doesn't matter what age you are starting your journey, or if something has happened and you feel like you're starting from complete scratch. The best beginner personal finance books that I've come across don't make you feel dumb. They don't make you feel stupid for not knowing things. They simply want you to know that there is a clear, actionable path if you want to get your finances on the right track. So if you are feeling behind, first off, know that there's no such thing. But if that's what you feel and you want a non-judgmental way to improve your finances, I'm going to show you a couple of these books that I would recommend. If I could find them, because I have so many on this stack. All right, I don't know where this one is. All right, Clever Girl Finance by Bola Shikumbi. all of a sudden, I can't find these books and I have another stack somewhere else. I don't know there. Okay. Get Good with Money, Tiffany Aliche. Rich AF, Vivian Tu. Financial Feminist by Tori Dunlap. And I actually found one, Money Out Loud, Berna Anat. So like I said, these are beginner-friendly books that they don't just teach you the steps to take to get your finances in order, but all of them, the way that they're written, they remind you that you're not behind. It's never too late to start, just start now. All right, takeaway number 2. After reading all of these books, major takeaway is everyone needs an emergency fund. An emergency fund is a dedicated amount of money that you set aside for emergencies only. This fund of money, this pool of money, it basically acts as a financial safety net, and it also gives you peace of mind. So before I started learning about personal finance and reading all of these books, I had no idea what an emergency fund was. Some of you might be like,
what? How could you not know? It's common knowledge.
I guarantee you it was not, at least not in my circles. I had never heard of it. So if some of you are in the same boat that I was and you're like,
what the hell is that?
I want you to know that 1, it's okay, and 2, we're gonna get you to have an emergency fund because it is a commonality in a lot of these different books that I read, including my graduate level courses. So I have a little side note, a little off topic, but related to this. I want you to know that personal finances, finances in general, they can be confusing. And they can be confusing if you've never been exposed to it. So for me, in my adulthood, I had heard of things like mutual funds and exchange traded funds and all these investment funds in the investing world. And looking back, I'm pretty sure there might have been times in my life where maybe I read an article or heard someone mention an emergency fund, and I probably assumed that it was some investing related thing because it had the word fund in it. And because of that, I probably subconsciously stopped paying attention to it. So that was just a little side story, but I really want you to know that I understand if these things are new information. So in actuality, emergency funds have nothing to do with investment funds. Let's be clear with that. I'm sure a lot of you already know that, but I didn't when I was younger, so I'm gonna say it just so we're all on the same page. The word fund in the context of emergency funds is just like its dictionary definition. It is a sum of money saved or made available for a particular purpose. And the purpose for this is to help get you through an emergency. And I would call the big 3 emergencies a loss of income, an unexpected medical emergency, or an unexpected family emergency. In the context of an emergency fund, it is no different from saving money, putting money in a savings account and holding on to it for later, except that what you're doing is making sure those dollars have a purpose. And more importantly, that you stick to the plan. You only use those dollars for that purpose. So I know in this video, I'm gonna share 6 takeaways. We're 1 down, we're on number 2 right now. And you're probably like,
you got 6 takeaways from these 44 books, and you're gonna use one of those 6 to tell us about an emergency fund?
Let me go a quick level deeper and tell you why I've mentioned this one, because there's a little more to it. As you continue your personal finance journey and you learn more about money, whether that's on the internet or from courses or from books or podcasts or your own financial advisor, the more you learn about money, the more you're gonna realize that it is a bunch of different people with different opinions on how different things should be done. And that's simply because there are so many ways to approach your finances. Everyone's financial life is different and everyone has different financial decisions that they need to make. After reading all of these books, I feel very confident in saying that 100% of credible sources, 100% of financial experts believe having an emergency fund is very important, that it is one of the first foundations that you should focus on if you are trying to improve your finances. There are very few things that I can say that about, right? People have different investment strategies. People have different approaches to how many accounts you should have, how many credit cards to have. Some people say,
don't use credit cards.
Some people say,
yeah, use them, get rewards.
There are so many approaches, but one of the few things that you're gonna notice that most people agree on, or 100% in my opinion, is that emergency funds are essential. It is very foundational, and that's why I felt the need to list it as one of the takeaways. So I'm pretty sure all of the books I've already mentioned in this video touched on emergency funds in some way. But if you want to check out other beginner books that definitely cover it, those would include I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. I'm telling you, I'm missing a whole stack of books. Oh, here's another one. Cultura and Cash, Giovanna Gonzalez. Pretty much all the beginner general finance books are going to mention it. You'll notice that. But if you don't want to read, then I also have a video where you can start learning about how to save for your first emergency fund. All right, all these books. Takeaway number 3 is there is always more to learn. More to learn about money, more to learn about finance and building wealth. So let me get a little philosophical. When it comes to personal finance, I actually have mixed views. On one hand, if you're not where you want to be financially and you want more wealth, you don't feel you're on the path towards financial security, I think it is very critical to keep learning. That is why I have my channel. That is why I have Wealth for Women of Color, which is a financial education platform. Money management, investing, credit cards, debt, even travel hacking. There are so many things to learn about. Financial literacy is an area that's going to help you throughout your life. So all that said, there is the other side where I think that at some point where you keep learning, keep building wealth, I feel like there's the other side where you also want to feel content with where you're at instead of constantly chasing more money and constantly trying to figure out new investments. I feel like there's got to come a point in life where you feel good about where you're at. So anyway, that was a little bit of a tangent, but what I want to say is that like most things in life, there is an ideal balance somewhere in the middle. I want you to stay open to new knowledge, but don't let it consume you. So for this takeaway where there's always more to learn, I'm not necessarily telling you to learn it all. I want you to find your balance in the middle. What I've learned after reading all of these books, especially these textbooks, grad level classes that I took, what I've realized is that when you learn about money and finance, you're basically unlocking different worlds, like you're exploring new worlds. For example, in my teenage years and in my 20s, I was in the mindset and in the world where this is how money worked. You got a good job and you made money, you spent some of it for your life, and you tried to save some. That was as much as I knew. When I started reading all of these books, I was introduced to a new world, right? Where there's more to financial literacy, there's more to money management, there's emergency funds, there are ways to attack your debt more strategically. There are ways to start investing as a beginner. That was a new world that I was introduced to. Now, when I started my journey towards becoming a certified financial planner, a whole new world, cue Aladdin and Jasmine, right? A whole new world opened up where I didn't know this existed. I didn't know that insurance planning or estate planning were parts of your financial picture. Like I had heard of things like getting a will or a trust, but I didn't know that there's like 20 billion types of trusts you could get. All right, I'm over exaggerating. It's not 20 billion, but there are so many different approaches to finances that I truly didn't know existed. That's why I'm saying like there's so many worlds. Now that I'm in this world and I'm a financial expert and I help people with all of those things, there's even this new world that I'm interested in that I don't know much about. My best friend Liz, who is actually my co-host on our podcast, Net, which you should check out, she is actually in the alternative investment space. So alternative investments are things beyond the stock market. It's real estate, it's commodities, it's business investing. There's this world that exists that I know I want to learn more about, but 5 years ago, I didn't even know that this existed. I want to learn about angel investing. I want to know what the VC world, venture capital world is like. So there's things that I'm interested in. I just know that I am happy and content with where I'm at, but I know that there's more to learn. So why is this a key takeaway? Why did I read all these books and I'm making such a big deal to tell you that there's always more to learn? Well, I want you to know this because I don't want you to limit yourself. So I have an example. There's a book called The Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins. This is a well-known beginner investing book, and if you haven't read it, the main idea behind it is that you don't need a financial advisor. You can build wealth in a very simple way, which is to DIY it and to invest in index funds. There's more to it, obviously, because I just summarized an entire book in one sentence. But what I want to point out as a certified financial planner is that on the surface, there's nothing wrong with that approach. It actually makes sense, right? Index funds offer diversification, which means you can reduce your risk that way. Not using a financial advisor can save you tons of money in fees. And some people like to set it and forget it and keep it simple and not have to think about their investments. So again, there is nothing wrong with that. But the key takeaway here that I want you to remember is that there is always more to learn. I've seen a lot of people in the personal finance space, especially other influencers, stop there.
They're like, yeah, diversifying index funds. Why would you do anything else?
But my approach is, look, what if you have a higher risk tolerance? What if you enjoy investing? What if you want to explore opportunities beyond the stock market, beyond bonds? If you read that book and thought that that was the main and only way to invest, you'd probably do fine. But I just think you have to match your path to wealth with your actual goals. Learn other strategies, even if you don't implement them, just so you know what the different strategies are, and so you can be sure that your own strategy is aligned with your goals. And if that sounds too overwhelming, that is kind of why some people have financial advisors and financial planners. I clearly don't align with the point in that book where they're like, just DIY it, because I'm a financial planner, yet I also have an advisor myself. I like the ability to rely on experts, especially for areas that I'm not familiar with. All right, let's move on to the fourth takeaway after having read all of these books that I want you to know. And that is, seems pretty simple, but investing is necessary to build wealth. I'll try to keep this one short and sweet, but as I've learned the ins and outs of personal finance, and as I took that journey to become a CFP practitioner, I am fully convinced that if you truly want financial security and you truly want wealth, you must invest. You are going to have to invest at some point. Now, obviously, when it comes to investing, there's a right way and there's a wrong way to go about it. The wrong way is to dive in headfirst without a plan and without a safety net. For example, no emergency fund, investing in risky assets, not diversifying, right? This would be like if you know a crypto bro who doesn't have an emergency fund and puts all of their money into just Bitcoin, right? I have nothing against Bitcoin, but it's the fact of putting everything all in one place when you don't even have a cushion for yourself. So the right way to go about building wealth is to ensure that you have your foundations in place alongside learning more and taking actions. Learning about investing alone isn't going to get you wealthy. You also have to implement your learnings by investing. But without those foundations, you're putting yourself at risk. So foundations can include having an emergency fund, paying off high interest debt, and understanding your investment strategy and risk tolerance. So if you're watching this video and maybe you're a little more seasoned in personal finances and investing, then I apologize if this part is a little boring to you for me to say investing is necessary to build wealth, because that might come across as obvious to you. But the reason I'm pointing this out as a takeaway is because in my own life, I did not come from a family that invested in the stock market. So my mom has always been good with money when it came to managing money, saving money, and being smart with spending. But because my parents were immigrants, they came here to work and no one taught them about the stock market, they were unable to teach me about it. I didn't learn about the stock market. I didn't learn how to start a business. I didn't learn anything about any other types of investments. While for some people it might seem obvious that you have to invest to build wealth, I want to point that out that that wasn't the case for me. So if you fall in the same boat of me and my upbringing, then all I want you to do is get comfortable with the idea of investing. I want you to know that if you want true financial security and wealth and a better quality of life because of it, start exposing yourself to investing and start to let go of those fears. Just know that it is necessary, it's required, you got to do it. And as long as you can navigate getting your foundations in place and understanding the basics of how investing works, you'll be able to do it very easily. So on that note, I really liked Girls That Invest by Simran Kaur. I only mumbled that because I didn't know if I pronounced it right, but Girls That Invest is a really good book. I felt like this book made the topic of investing really simple and also empowering, especially for women who have never even thought about investing before or who have always thought it was too complicated to understand. All right, 4 takeaways down, 2 to go. Quick intermission. If you are enjoying this video and learning stuff, getting something out of it, please don't forget to hit the like button, drop me a comment, and subscribe if you want more videos, because it really helps out my channel and enables me to make more content that can help you guys out. So as always, I appreciate the support. Takeaway number 5, your money mindset is critical for your financial growth. One of the earliest books that I read in my own journey, along with Broke Millennial that I mentioned earlier, was, I don't think I have it, but it's called The Wealthy Barber. It's a fictional story, but it still guides you through making good financial decisions. It's basically about a barber who teaches his customers different simple wealth building habits. And because it's told in a narrative, it's a story, it kind of offers a different approach to learning finances, because the way the story is told, it kind of walks you through what people's thoughts and feelings are about certain financial aspects. When you see people's rationale and reasoning for doing things the way that they do, it sometimes displays how oftentimes people get in their own way. A lot of times people do make enough money to support their life and a financially secure future, but they get in their own way. So the thing is, we are all human, we all have emotions, we all have thoughts related to our emotions, and we all sometimes take actions that are influenced by different emotions. One of the best things we all can do for ourselves in relation to our finances is to build our self-awareness about the thoughts and feelings we have regarding money. So The Wealthy Barber is an older book. It was written in 1989, I believe. But what I noticed is that there is a trend of personal finance books that dig into behavioral psychology in relation to money. And I like this because I think it's very important. So if you feel like your biggest struggle with money is simply you getting in your own way, then it might be that you want to improve your relationship with money and get to know your money mindset and ways you can shift your mindset. If you fall in that category, then here are some books that you might want to check out. Oh, it's at the bottom. It's at the bottom of this stack. Okay. I'll pick that up later. Feel Good Finance by Asia Evans. Finance for the People by Paco de Leon. I don't see it here, but The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. You Are a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero. And also We Should All Be Millionaires by Rachel Rogers. Again, all great books. They do give you practical tips, but they do focus a lot as well on your money mindset. All right, takeaway number 6. Working for 40 plus years is not the only option. For this final takeaway that I want to talk through, I want to tap into business and entrepreneurship. I don't want you to be scared if this is not a world that you're familiar with. I just want to touch on it. So having read all of these books, something that I noticed as a common theme is that a lot of financially successful people don't rely on just one traditional source of income or one traditional path towards wealth, which is typically a really, really long career, working one job at a time, one source of income, and never being able to take a break. Instead, a lot of times, really wealthy people will diversify their income streams. They will leverage different types of investments, and they'll build businesses that they either work in or oversee that ultimately allow them more flexibility and financial freedom. So I want to point out what this traditional work path is versus an alternative path. And that's because I was always taught, like most people, the traditional path. go to school, go to college, and get in debt because of it, get a good job, then work for a lot of years. Then you retire sometime in your 60s. I think this is even more prevalent in a lot of immigrant households, especially if your parents, like mine, had no other choice but to work hard and earn money. It's not just immigrant households, but it is very common where that's all you know. You know that you got to work hard, make money, and then live a life with that money. So there's nothing wrong with this traditional approach. But like I said earlier, where you want to know that there's always more to learn, it's similar. I want you to know that it's not the only way to build wealth. So a lot of the more, I'd say, intermediate books that I've read emphasize creating multiple streams of income, because relying just on one job makes you financially vulnerable. It might take a lot of time. It might take years to get that next source of income, whether that's through investing or building a business or even a side hustle. But the goal is that you keep it in mind as a potential path. Another takeaway, a sub takeaway from these books that I've seen is that entrepreneurship can have a path to freedom and financial freedom. A lot of times there is this notion that entrepreneurship means working more than you would in a 9-to-5 and never getting any sleep, because if you don't work, your business dies. But that's not the case. That just means you probably have not great operations in your business, right? So ultimately, I don't necessarily think one is better than the other, like entrepreneurship versus working a 9-to-5, but they're different and they serve different purposes depending on what your goal is. So I think it's worth thinking about, what would your ideal life look like if it came down to it? Do you prefer the security and stability of a regular income at a job that could potentially lay you off or fire you? Or do you want it to ride on yourself and your own decisions in your business? Again, I'm not here to convince all of you to become entrepreneurs. I just want you to know it is an option. 9-to-5 for 40 years straight is not the only way. Finally, less related to entrepreneurship, but investing for financial independence is also a big theme. So a lot of people put off investing because of trying to get their finances in order. But in reality, investing can provide you a source of income, not just for retirement, but even sooner. That's why there's the FIRE movement, right? Financial independence, retire early. And there's other types of approaches to using your investments as a source of income in the future. But it really takes getting your finances organized now and working towards it. So as for me, after having read all of these books and really diving into finances, the major mindset shift that I've had to make in the last 6 to 7 years is that you have more options than you think. I had a career working in tech. I worked at Google for 11 years. I thought I had it made. I thought I might retire there. It wasn't until I burned out, I got tired of it, I wanted something else, that I realized I could do it. I could fend for myself and make it. I didn't think this was possible 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, because I never learned this world. But now that I've exposed myself to more information, I know that it's a possibility. So a couple book recommendations if you are kind of more business minded and entrepreneurial minded, but I think these are worth reading regardless. The 4-Hour Work Week, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I have mixed feelings about that one, but I still think it's worth reading. And Your Money or Your Life. In short, these books show you that there are different ways to structure your life than working at a 9-to-5 for 40 plus years. All right, last thing before we wrap up this video, I said earlier that I was going to share the 2 books that surprised me the most, and that's surprise in a good way. And those are, I'm going to be really mad if it's not in this stack. All right, it's not in this stack. All right, number 1, Financially Lit by Janice Torres. So Janice is a fellow personal finance expert and influencer, content creator. So when I listened to her audiobook, I had already read so many personal finance books. I didn't read this in the beginning of my journey. I read this within the last year. And I had kind of just expected to find something similar to all of these other beginner books. But what surprised me about her book was how much it went in depth into business, like if you do want to become an entrepreneur. She dug into like business entities and how you contribute to retirement as a budding entrepreneur. And she also went very in depth into investing, more than I assumed would be in that book. And I'm not saying I went in with low expectations. I'm just saying I didn't know it was going to be that in depth and easy to understand. So I was really surprised. I felt like it was a comprehensive beginner personal finance book, but it didn't leave you there, and that's what I appreciated about it. I have this theory, I'll talk about it in the future on a future video. I have this theory that in order for women of color to get ahead and really close the wealth gap, it's not our responsibility, but if we want to do it for ourselves and our individual lives, I have this theory that we kind of have to keep going, right? We can't just do the beginner stuff and be done with it. We have to do the intermediate and advanced stuff. We have to get into the world of institutional investing. We have to take up spaces that we historically haven't been a part of. That is a tangent. I'll have more on that. If you want more on that, let me know in the comments. But anyway, that is why I really appreciated this book, is because it wasn't just like, all right, you know all the basics, done. It was also introducing you into, all right, what's next? So I would say definitely check that book out. All right, now the second book that surprised me is one of my textbooks from getting my CFP certification. It's the one on estate planning. Low-key, all the books kind of were interesting and surprised me, but let me tell you why estate planning surprised me. And also, I don't expect you, this is a textbook, so I don't recommend you to read it unless you want to get into estate planning. But here's why I was surprised. Until I learned this in this class on estate planning, I thought I knew what generational wealth was. I thought like, okay, you make money, maybe you buy a house, maybe you have some property, some things, and then whatever you have, you make sure you pass it on to your kids when you die. That's what I thought generational wealth was. That is not, I mean, that's a part of it technically, but a very tiny, small part of it. I didn't even know that there was a thing called a gift tax or a transfer tax, that there are taxes involved if you want to pass on big amounts of money and assets to other people, that you're the one that has to pay the taxes. And so one of the things that surprised me is like, this is a beginner book on estate planning, right? Essentially, estate planning in the world of financial planning is for beginners because in order to do an estate plan, you need an attorney. But as a beginner book, like, look how big this is. This is a thick book for a beginner estate planning book. So I'm like, okay, it's not just a will then, right? There's a bunch of other stuff. There are so many different types of trusts and different ways to pass on assets to people through businesses, through trusts, through insurance. There's different ways to pass on assets to the people you love. And that's why it surprised me. It's because, like I mentioned earlier, this, again, was a world I didn't know existed. So yeah, now I have a very different view and understanding of what generational wealth is, but that's a good thing because it means I can help more of you reach that goal if that's something you're interested in. So I hope this video was interesting. Let me know in the comments if you plan to read any of these books or if you want another book recommendation for a specific purpose. I'm happy to share my knowledge and give recommendations. All right, until next time. Peace out.